In today's video, I'm going to be sharing how to make these adorable crochet heart and star gingerbread cookies that are not only easy to make, but super versatile. You can use them as ornaments, gift tags, or join two together to create a cute pocket for candy and tiny treasures. Along with the cookies, I'll be sharing a variety of ways that you can use different stitches and embroidery techniques to add personal touches, just like decorating real gingerbread cookies. This is going to be a lot of fun, so let's get started. For these demos, I'll be using a weight 4 cotton yarn with a 4 and 5 millimeter hook, but you can easily resize these to make them bigger or smaller simply by going up and down on your hook and yarn size. To work the star, I'm going to start with a larger hook than I normally do. I'm going to begin with a 5 millimeter hook. If you've made granny squares before, this is going to feel really comfortable because we're going to start the first round with 5 granny stitch clusters. To begin, create a magic ring, or you can do a chain 4 with a slip stitch to form a ring. Yarn around your fingers, pull the yarn through the center, and create a chain. Next, chain 2. This is going to serve as our first double crochet. I am including this little chain here as one of my chains, so that's essentially 3 chains. And now I'm going to do a typical granny stitch cluster. That's just 2 more double crochets into the ring. Chain 2, 3 double crochets for our next cluster. Chain 2. Continue doing this around until you have 5 granny stitch clusters and 5 chain 2s. To complete the round, add a slip stitch into the top of your chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And to begin round 2, we're going to start in the middle of the cluster. So slip stitch over 1 more stitch. And that will get you into the middle. You have your 3 double crochets. You're in the top of the middle one. For round 2, we're going to be doing the same sequence per chain 2 space, and it goes as follows. Chain 1, working into the chain 2 space, half double crochet, double crochet, chain 2, working our way back down, double crochet, half double crochet, and then chain 1. Add a slip stitch into the top of the second double crochet, and that's your first point completed. So let's do that again. Chain 1, working into the chain 2 space, half double, double, chain 2, working our way back down, double, half double, chain 1. Add a slip stitch into the second double crochet, 1, 2. And you're just going to repeat this all the way around until you have 5 points. When you come to the end, don't forget that final chain 1. And now we're just going to slip stitch into the same place that we began in that middle double crochet. To add an icing edging, we're just going to do single crochets all the way around our star. I think I'm going to go down 1 hook size, so I did 5 millimeter for my cookie. I'm going to go down to a 4 millimeter for my icing. I'm not going to be too fussy on how exact I am with my single crochets here. I am going to make sure to do 3 single crochets in the points. That will help me get around those corners, but otherwise I'm going to wing it. So I'll start here in a point with 3 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and then a single crochet on the sides. Here's my slip stitch area, just a single crochet in there. And just a single per stitch, and then 3 in the top. If you find it's working too tightly, you may want to go up on that hook size or just add an extra single crochet here or there. If you just follow the stitch pattern here, it should work pretty well for you. Coming to the end, slip stitch into the very first stitch. To make the icing for your cookie, you're simply going to go down a smaller hook size. I would recommend that you go down at least 1 to 1.5 sizes smaller. For example, I used a 5mm for my cookie, and now I'm going to use a 3.5 for the icing. I did try it with a 4mm, and it's slightly bigger than I wanted it to be, so that's why I'm going down to a 3.5. One quick tip as you're making your icing, as you go to slip stitch to complete the round, I'd recommend that you give yourself a nice long tail. That way you can use it for stitching your icing to your cookie. And now we're just going to tack it onto the cookie. So grab your favorite tapestry needle. I'm just using a Susan Bates finishing needle. You can use whatever stitching method you like best. I'll go ahead and show you mine. I like to do it in a way that the top of the stitches remain intact. I don't want you to see any of those stitches going around it, so I'm going to work under it. But basically, I'm not going to go all the way through to the back of the crochet stitches here. I'm going to work into the top. So right below where I am, I'm just going to catch a couple of strands. And I'm going to work into the back leg of the stitch from the top. I hope you can see that. I know it's white, makes it a little bit tricky to see. I apologize for that. But it's the back leg. Here's the top of the stitch, and there's the back leg of it. And I'm just going to grab that. I want it to fit, so you see the top of the stitches, top of the stitches. So again, I'm just going to go and grab the top of the cookie, the back leg of the stitch, and pull through. To complete this, I'm just going to create a little bit of a knot here, just going in, going through the loop of the yarn to create a tie. You can do that a couple of times if you like. And then I'm just going to take the yarn and thread it through the back, hopefully catching some stitches, but not being too particular with that. And then snipping. At this point, this would benefit greatly from being blocked on a blocking board. You can just add some pins to this, spritz it with water, or steam block it, just to give it a nice shape. To begin our heart, we're going to start with a magic ring, or you can do a chain 4 with a slip stitch to form a ring, whichever you prefer. I'll go ahead and do a magic ring. Either way, chain 1. And now we're not going to count this as a stitch. We're going to do 12 half double crochets into our ring. Yarn over, go into the ring, pull the yarn through, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. That's a half double crochet. Continue this all the way around, making 12 half double crochets. When you've completed your 12 half doubles, tighten your ring. And at this point, I would recommend that you do grab yourself a stitch marker because we're going to be working in spirals. We're not going to slip stitch after this round. We're just going to continue on working. To get started with the round, we're going to get into the heart of it, quite literally. We're going to do the tip of the heart. So we're going to be doing several stitches into the very first stitch. Basically, those stitches are 1 half double crochet, 3 double crochets, 1 half double crochet. So let's begin with a half double. Add a stitch marker. And in that same stitch, 3 double crochets. And 1 more half double crochet, all in that same stitch. Now we're going to do a slip stitch in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2, and now we're doing that big sequence again in the next stitch. So it's 1 half double, 3 doubles, all in the same stitch, 2, 3, and then 1 half double to complete the sequence. So there's the top of our heart. Now we're doing 3 single crochets, 1 in each of the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. And now we're doing the point of our heart. And to do that, we're just going to do a half double crochet in the next 2 stitches. So that's 1 and 2. At this point, you should have 3 stitches left to work into. We're just going to do a single crochet in each one of those. 1, 2, and 3. Great, that's round 2 completed, and now we're ready for the final round, round 3. To begin round 3, we're going to do a single crochet into that very first stitch. So remove your stitch marker and add a single crochet. Replace your stitch marker. And now to get around our bend here, we're going to do some increasing. We're going to do 2 single crochets into the next 3 stitches. So there's 2 in that stitch, 2 in the next stitch, and 2 more in the following stitch. Now 1 single crochet, and now just like before, 2 slip stitches, 1 and 2, 1 single crochet in the next stitch, and it's kind of tight there because it was a slip stitch before. And now again we're doing that increase, 2 single crochets into the next 3 stitches. Two in the next stitch, and 2 in the final stitch there. Now working down the other side, 4 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've come to the point of our heart. We're going to do an increase here, 2 single crochets in the next 2 stitches. So in this stitch, we're doing 2, 2 in the next stitch, And now at this point you should have 3 remaining stitches to work into. 1, 2, 3. Awesome, we're on track. So just add a single crochet into each one of those. 2 and 3. And at this point you can do a slip stitch or you can do an invisible join. Let me show you the invisible join. You can do this with your crochet hook or your tapestry needle. Here's the stitch that you worked into. You're going to go into the next stitch, go under both strands of that stitch, come back over and work into the top of just the one in the back. And then just weave in your ends however you like best. For the edging, I'm going to go down half a hook size just because I kind of like the look of it. Definitely not mandatory. Just going to find somewhere to start, just on the side here with a single crochet. And then I'm just going to go around the side with singles. When I come to the bend, I'm not counting stitches here. I'm just kind of looking at the bend here. I can see it. I'm just going to add 2, 2, and 2. Continue on with regular single crochets. Here at the dip here, I am going to do slip stitches just because I really want to keep the emphasis on that pointed area going in there. And then back to single crochets. And then here in these 3 stitches, I'm going to do an increase and just eyeball this. I may not have done it exactly the same on the other side. Not too bothered about it. And then just singles all the way down. Now I have these 3 stitches here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to find where I feel like the point would be. And I'm going to add 3 single crochets into that center one, just to help give it a point. And then here you can slip stitch or do the invisible join, whichever one you prefer. And just like before, I'm going to do the invisible join 1 stitch over. Bless you. Poor Biscuit has a cold. And I just find that that kind of keeps that side straighter when I do that. But try it both ways and see what you like best. And then weave in however you prefer. To make the icing of your cookie, you're going to use the same hook size. You're just going to do the first 2 rounds of the pattern. That's all there is to it. And now you can attach it to your cookie and it fits in beautifully. So again, not working into these stitches here, just next to it. And catching the back bar of the stitch above. Then when I come to the end, I'm just going to catch some yarn, create a knot, and then just thread it through to the middle. And snip. And finally, we have the larger heart that is worked in rows, and this is ideal because you can easily resize this one. I also really love this one because you can easily turn this into a pocket or a pouch. Just for gauge, this one is about 15 to 16 rows and would fit into a 5 by 5 inch square. For this one, I'm using a 4mm hook, beginning with a slip knot on the hook, chain 2, and in the second chain from the hook, add 2 single crochets. Chain 1 and turn. And in the 2 stitches, we're going to do an increase, 2 single crochets in each one of those stitches. Be sure to ignore the chain 1 stitch here. These are the 2 that you want to work into. Chain 1 and turn. And from here on out, we're going to do 1 increase per row. So in that very first stitch, add 2 single crochets, and then 1 single in the 3 remaining stitches. And that has taken the 4 stitches up to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're just going to continue this until we have 14 stitches. So chain 1 and turn, working into the first stitch with an increase. And then 1 single in each of the remaining stitches. Once you've done 12 rows and you have 14 stitches, now you're ready to do the points or the top of your heart. Essentially, we're going to do one side of the heart first, fasten off, and then do the other side of the heart. So still attached to the yarn, chain 1 and turn, and work 7 single crochets. So 1 in each of the next 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Chain 1 and turn. So now instead of doing increases, we're going to switch it up and do decreases to help round this out. You're working into the very first stitch and the second stitch to do a decrease. To do a decrease, go into the first stitch, pull the yarn through, go into the second stitch, pull the yarn through. You have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops. And that's your decrease. You took 2 and turned it into 1. Now just do a single crochet in the remaining stitches. And this will take your 7 single crochets down to 6. Chain 1 and turn. We're just going to continue doing this. Another decrease. Going into the first stitch, pull through, second stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops, and now work a single in the remaining stitches. Chain 1 and turn, decrease in the first 2 stitches, a single in the remaining 3. We're down to 4 stitches, chain 1 and turn. And this is important because when you see 4 stitches remaining, we're on our last row. So we're going to do our typical decrease. We have 2 stitches remaining, add a single. And instead of doing a single crochet in that final stitch, do a slip stitch. That'll just help with the shape. Fasten off. I'm not adding a knot to fasten off, I'm just letting it stay loose, and then that way I can weave it in and it won't be so bumpy. All right, and you should have something that looks like this. And we're just going to flip it over and fasten on in the very first stitch. So here's our very first stitch. Go in, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and I have a single crochet already done. We're just going to repeat the same thing. We're going to do 7 single crochets in total. We've just done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now we're just going to do the same sequence that we did before. Chain 1, decrease into the first 2 stitches, work our row, seven turned into 6, and I'm just going to continue this until I have 4 remaining stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to reduce this down to 3. So I'm doing my decrease, single crochet into the next stitch, and a slip stitch for the final stitch, just to help round it out. One little tip here while we're doing that, if the tip of your heart got a little bit gappy there, you can just undo your slip knot. Just give it a little tug, and it will give it a really nice point. And then just weave this in like you normally would. If you want to make a pocket or a pouch, make 2, and now it's time to decorate. If you're not making a pouch, then you're just going to go all the way around with your icing. Basically, you're just doing single crochets all the way around until you come to your curves. You do want to do some increases to help get around those curves. And in your point, you're doing 3 single crochets. And then do your decoration. If you are doing the pocket, you don't want to do the edging yet, because you're going to do that to seam the 2 sides together. But you do want to do your embroidery before you stitch the 2 sides together. I'll go ahead and show you the little flower that I made for mine. It's a very simple flower using half double crochets and chains. I'm going to go down a little smaller for this. I'm going to use a 3.5 just to help tighten it and make it a little bit smaller. You can begin with a chain 4 with a slip stitch to form a ring if you like. I'm going to do a magic ring. Next, do a half double crochet, chain 2, slip stitch into your ring, and chain 1. Half double crochet, chain 2, slip stitch into the ring, chain 1. Continue this all the way around until you have 5 petals. Half double crochet, chain 2, slip stitch into the ring, chain 1. Tighten the center, slip stitch into the very first stitch that you made, and fasten off. Leave yourself a nice long tail. You can use that to fasten it onto your crochet piece. Decide where you want your flower, just kind of in the middle of the 2 points here. Just going to place it right there. And I don't really like going through to the other side. I like to keep that as clean as possible. So I'm just going to catch the top portion of the crochet to help tack it in place. Going under, just grabbing some from underneath. This is just my preference. Tack this on however you like. And then to complete it, a little bit of a knot, going back in. Let's do a French knot center. Just grab a stretch of yarn. It doesn't have to be very long, maybe about 12 inches. A proper tapestry needle would be perfect for this. I'm not going to go grab one. I'm just going to use this. Just going to go through the hole. Make sure to leave a tail to weave in later. You're just going to take the yarn and wrap it around your needle 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Going back into the hole in a different area, otherwise it's just going to go right through. Notice I'm just holding on to everything. And then as I get closer, I pull through. Don't pull too tight. And there's my French knot. And I just tie these together. For the leaves, I'm going to do a technique called the lazy daisy. Just grab a stretch of yarn, about 12 inches or so. All we're doing here is making a stem, and we're using that lazy daisy stitch to make the petals. And I'm just kind of free-forming this. I'm just going to make a petal here. So to start, go in and decide where you want your petal to be. And I want mine to be right around in here. So what I'm going to do, so you can kind of visualize it like that, right? Back in and go where I think I want the tip of that leaf to be, making sure that the needle is going in front of the yarn. Got it? You see what's happening here? And then to anchor it down, just going in the same place and pushing the yarn through. And I'm going to go back in where I did my leaf. I'm just going to go up a little bit. Make a stem here. And now I'm just going to add a couple of leaves here. Again, this is just kind of making it up as I go. I'm going to go a little bit below the stem here. I want my leaf to be around here, I guess. So I want it to be around there, so I'm just going to come back in. Remember, the yarn is behind the needle. And then to anchor it down, there we go. If you make it too tight, then just loosen it back up. And then let's do one more over here. So just kind of place your thumb at the tip of where you want your leaf to be so that you can come in and your crochet kind of has to rule it a little bit. It kind of guides you where you can place your stitches. You don't want to force anything. And then anchor it down. And then I'll just go ahead and fasten off here. I always like to add a little bit of a loop. A little bit of fabric glue wouldn't hurt. And then I would just repeat the process on the other side for the embroidery. To make the pouch, you're going to take your 2 pieces, your 2 crochet hearts, and do single crochets all the way around, seam them together. So grab the same hook that you used for your main project, or you can use a smaller hook if you want a tighter join. I'm adding a slip knot to my hook. And I've established that I want to have my join begin roughly around the second row here. I am not joining to the back side yet. I'm creating my first single crochet. Now I'm around this bend, so I'm going to do 2 doubles per stitch just to help me get around the bend. So I did 2 and 2. But like I mentioned earlier, it will really depend on you and how it's working for you. So just play with that. Don't follow me exactly with that. Just do what looks good for you, okay? Just going around with single crochets. Just making it as even as possible, nice and neat. Coming to a bend, I'm going to add a couple of singles per stitch here just to help me get around. So I'm trying to line this up because now I want to join. For my next single crochet, I'm going to go in all of the layers and create a single crochet. And now they're joined. Now I'm just going to do the same thing, single crochets all the way along. If it feels like it needs more than one in a stitch, I'll go ahead and do that just to help around those edges. Again, remember, we're just wanting this to be pretty. I'm just going through all of the layers. At the heart point, I like to do 3 single crochets to help get around. Okay, we're coming up close to the end here. You notice here I went into the same stitch. And now I'm going to go ahead and fasten off. And I'm going to do an invisible seam here. And I'll go ahead and weave that in now since I'm here. Just going to fasten back on with a single crochet. And now I'm just going to do the back side of my heart. And in that very last stitch, I'm going to put 2 just to give it a little bit of oomph there. And there we go, it's all joined together. Not too bad. I think another time I would prefer to join maybe at the tip of the heart, give a smaller opening. It would depend on what I want to put in there, but that's the whole point of this. This is something I just wanted to show how you could do it, give you the basic steps of how to do it, and then you can take it and just run with it, and then you can experiment and see where you would prefer to have the join. Well, I do hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, a like is always appreciated. Let me know if you're interested in more videos about embroidery on crochet. I would love to make some videos for you on that. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.